Okay, the key to this stove is, again, just one brick opening at the top to let the flames go up and then dive down to get to the chimney, which is all the way at the bottom of this back square. And then I put in, it's not a Russian dry slot. Got another stove design that goes smoke free. This took 6 or 7 minutes. Took a little while, but eventually goes smoke free. The pipe goes all the way to the bottom. The flame curls up along the top and then has to dive down to the bottom. Inserting this at the end, guys, real quick. I have more details on this at the very end. This is the type of stove that fits best into an existing open fireplace. If you have an existing open fireplace and you want to spend $5,000, $6,000, or $7,000 on a brand new catalytic stove with installation costs and you're doing it yourself, this is the design that I think best fits into an open fireplace. I'll talk about it at the end. About 5 minutes later, still smoke free. "15 minutes, still smoke free. It started to smoke a tiny bit, like the last stove experiment, and I added another brick to take away a lot of the air, keep the high temperatures in the firebox without air conditioning. It did seem to help. I think the last test smoked at the end once all the flame was gone because there was just too much cold air rushing in, and you need a way to close the air off. This definitely seemed to help. Okay, let me show you how this one was built as I take it apart. This is just dryer vent. You have to burn off, I say it in every video, burn off the galvanization. It's safe once everything's burned off. I just put the bricks around it the best that I could, cut out that piece of metal, and then stuffed it with mineral wool. It didn't leak. When you make a stove that's only 2 fire bricks wide, the first level of the ceiling of the firebox, you should do 2 levels over the firebox. The first ceiling is just 2 bricks pushed together, and even for the test without mortar, it holds fine if it's just a 2 brick wide firebox. I cut a piece of sheet metal. It's probably like, it's really thin, 24 or 26 gauge. Just use this, what is it, 8 foot, probably 6 foot dryer vent pipe. The pipe was put all the way at the bottom of the stove, and this is the cutout I use. I call it like the Centurion's helmet, the Knight's helmet. Put a little bit extra on top, and then I just dropped it all the way to the bottom. The key to this stove is, this is the ceiling of the firebox. It's 1 brick, which is just 2.5, allows the flames to come over the top, and then they have to dive down the bottom to get out. I also put in a little extra slit here. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to it. And again, this is like another, having all the flames come through this small space is like another superheated zone. I think that does eat up a lot of smoke when you push flames through a small space. Superheated zone uses the smoke up as fuel. Okay, the key to this stove is, again, just 1 brick opening at the top to let the flames go up and then dive down to get to the chimney, which is all the way at the bottom of this back square. And then I put in, it's not a Russian dry slot. It is not a Russian dry slot. You can see how clean it is around the slot, which means the flames were being sucked through, creating huge temperatures, which burns off the soot. It always gets clean, just to create turbulence. If you put a slit in like this, and that slit has access to cold air, or air coming in directly, but it could bypass the fire if your firebox too wide, and if cool air can find that slit, your stove will smoke like crazy. You cannot let cool air into the chimney. You can see the outline of where the chimney was, a little circle there. So if you made this firebox wider, this worked perfectly because it's a thin firebox. All the sticks were piled up, as you can see here. Only flame could get through there, not cold air. So it went smoke free. One more note on this, it is really important. When you do a stove test, you want to look for what's clean, the areas that are clean. And you know that's where your highest temperatures were. So, of course, along the top here to lap up in this space, along the back. And the rest is black. Just because it's black, it doesn't mean it's bad or anything. It just means, you know, it's not the highest temperatures. Well, one more thing before I totally break it down. Not including the base and not including the ceiling of the firebox. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 high. 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, 6. 6 high, not including the ceiling of the fireplace. Not including the ceiling of the firebox, not including the base. 6 high. Long and thin is needed for this type of stove. You could easily, this is a low firebox. You could probably go 2 higher and it would still work. Still with a 1 brick opening to get over the top and keeping that slot kind of in a position where it's going to have flame pulled in, not cold air. If it's totally on the bottom, it can actually find some cold air. You could go a row or 2 higher on this, and it would still work. You could go a whole brick, make it longer. Whole brick. What do we have? It's only 3. It's only 3 bricks. 9 times 3 is 27. It's only 27 inches, 3 fire bricks before it hits the wall. So if you're going to build a stove, you might as well build a little bit larger firebox. Go an extra half or a full brick longer. Don't go much higher, because then that creates a, you know, then if you go wider too, if you want to make a wider firebox, fine, but you have to be careful. If you put a slit in, a wide firebox that slit will find cold air. Oh, if you were building this, you know, your wall between the pipe and the firebox, you would just stack up your bricks kind of loose. Because once a year you need to get back here and clean it out. If you staggered your bricks up, staggered them with the walls and mortared it all in, you wouldn't be able to get back there and clean it out. And I wouldn't. There's so much flame shooting around down there. I would not put a clean out door. It's probably would leak. Well, you could, but you'd have to stuff it with mineral wool or ceramic insulation. It would leak a little bit of smoke out. It's not just the clean areas you can learn from. You can learn from the ash pile how much complete combustion there was, especially something like this. You see only to our right side of that stick is burned. The side where the door was is not burned. That's exactly what you want for a stove like this. The air coming in the bottom so aggressively that the flame can't work back to the left on the stick. Now, that's how you're able to use a slit like this, and for that air to come in very aggressively left to right, you have to have a long and low firebox. So you put your firebox up 5, 6 more rows, the flame's going to go, and the air's going to want to go up. And that, it just doesn't, that's great for certain types of stoves, a high firebox. It's not good for this type of stove, especially if you put a slit in like that. If you have a way to prime the chimney and get it super hot, if you have a much higher firebox, your flames will still lap up over that one brick opening and dive down. But you'd have to prime it if you got your firebox very, very high, and the dynamics of the stove would change. For this stove, that is, that's exactly what I wanted. What is this slit? Well, it's one full firebrick across. It's I don't know, probably just 1.5 inches. Yeah, it's no more than that. Well, for turbulence, it does kind of act like a rocket stove port. Ideally, a rocket stove port, like in a batch box, shouldn't be that long. It should be much, the thin fire bricks. You just use metal or a very thin fire brick. And one of the reasons also, these bricks stay cold for quite a while until they really heat up. So even though the flame was passing through this area, it was passing through cold brick. That's why this stove took about 5 minutes or so to go smoke free. Just laid in there. Maybe a few times a year you just remove the bricks and shovel out all the way to the pipe. If your pipe gets clogged, you're screwed because the pipe goes all the way to the bottom. This is the piece I cut of real flimsy. It's probably like 26 gauge or something, and just to keep the well, I had it up high. Of course, the gases were coming underneath that. It worked. If you got 22 gauge or 20 gauge, it would last a long, long time. Yeah, you guys know I love to talk about the rocket stove tinkers and all the bullshit that they put in to the rocket stoves. I see these batch box rocket stoves being built online, especially by the Europeans. No, I mean, the Germans cannot build a masonry heater without it being the most complicated damn thing in the world. That's just who they are. You do all these complicated ports. I mean, you hardly have to do anything. You just have the brick sticking out the side. You pull it out the side so it makes a slit, and this would work for a port. I know I said that a thick area is not as good as a thin for a port for a rocket stove, but you just get an angle grinder and cut that corner off like that. So it's open and it narrows. Everything funnels down to a very narrow area, just about 1.5 inches, depending on the size of your stove. If you make a big wide stove and you have 5 big pieces of oak, you're going to have to make that a little wider. Just cut your corners off and funnel everything with an angle grinder. Use this blade. Piece of cake. That's all you need. There's your port. All this complicated horse shit you see online. Okay guys, this is the last image and a detailed 5-minute or so discussion for anybody considering putting this sort of stove into an existing open fireplace. If you're going to put a masonry heater in the middle of your house, there are better designs. But if you have an open fireplace and you don't want to spend the whatever thousands and thousands on buying a wood stove insert, this is a good option for a house that has an existing open fireplace. And one of the main reasons I like it is you can make it into a hybrid. If you replace the firebox ceiling here, I have a layer of fire brick and then that layer of cement block on top. If you replace it with like a 2-foot by 3-foot section of soapstone that you would get cut at a kitchen countertop place, then it would become a hybrid stove. You would get almost immediate heat, just 5 to 10 minutes. Your soapstone slab on top would get piping hot. It would act like an iron stove. Then the other, 800 pounds of mass from the fire brick, however high or long your stove is, would act like a mini masonry heater and would radiate heat out after 1.5 hours. It takes a while, but it would still continue to radiate heat out for 3 or 4 hours, even after the fire was out. So I really like the hybrid approach here. Of course, I don't know where you get a big slab of iron cut, but people would know where to get that. A big slab of iron on top, or an 18 or 16 gauge piece of sheet metal, not with the galvanization burned off. I don't know how you would do that. If it's probably the most expensive option, but it would become a nice a very attractive looking stove. Of course, my stove looks like absolute hell because of the fire bricks. The yellow, sandy, and silicate fire bricks look like hell to begin with. There are manufacturers that make red fire bricks that look like real bricks. They're very nice. I forget the name of the manufacturer, but mine look like hell. If you got those nice red fire bricks that look like real bricks, they're still 9 by 4.5 by 2.5, and you put a nice slab of like black soapstone on top, that would look so, and you had the glass door, that'd be awesome. Your soapstone on top would heat piping hot, 5 to 7 minutes. Start radiating heat out immediately. Then the rest of the stove would take an hour and a half. But again, it would keep radiating out the heat. Now, in terms of what else would be it, I'd like to eventually go to a kitchen countertop place. I'm going to go in a week or two. I'm going to get their scraps of granite, quartz, whatever they sell, and I'm going to test it for thermal retention, and I'm going to burn the little pieces to see how granite does and the other things sold at kitchen countertop places. But the old soapstone, we know works. Now, the Hearthstone soapstone stoves are primarily soapstone. They've been selling soapstone stoves for 50 years or something or more. I mean, it can take the direct flame. I've heard people say, with soapstone, you should, for your first fire of the year, you should burn it slowly. And I've never heard that to be an issue. But yeah, I know soapstone, maybe you do have to break it in a bit, but it can take the direct flame. Now, you'd want to, if you got it from if you got a slab for your firebox top from a kitchen countertop place that cuts, granite, whatever, you want to make sure, is it real soapstone from the earth? Not like, who knows if maybe they put something, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is an issue at all, if it's a blend of whatever. So it has to be real soapstone from the earth. And again, granite on top, I don't know. Those other types of materials. I know kitchen countertop places sell quartz. I don't know anything about that. Maybe it would hold up to the heat, but not take in any heat or hold any heat. I don't know. Would it be reflective? Probably would be great, but I just know soapstone has been used with heat retention applications in fireplaces and stoves, probably going back thousands of years. So that is always the best option, soapstone. Okay, so if you do that, though, you've got to be very careful, from carbon monoxide leaking. You're just putting a soapstone slab on top of fire brick. And, I would have what mortar would you use for that? Probably a refractory mortar, and a real refractory mortar, and then on the inside of the stove and on the outside, I would get those little jars of Imperial stove cement mortar, and I would go along the seam on the outside, and then I would seal the seam on the inside with Imperial, so it'd be a triple level protection. Your refractory mortar, you're going to place the soapstone slab on top, right down on the refractory mortar. Some refractory mortar does need to be fired or cured, right? You have to check, does it need heat to set up properly? Then I would go in with a rubber gloved hand, and I would just lay that Imperial on the seam on the inside and on the outside both. So you have 3 levels of protection from gases, carbon monoxide, etc. And I think even that Imperial needs to be fired, needs to be heated up a bit before it cures all the way. So for your door in the front on the cheap would be the 8-inch clean-out doors that are available on Amazon.com. It seems like my high flame door is gone. It's not on Amazon anymore. But they have your basic 8-inch, fits into a 9-inch fire brick opening. It's a 9-inch opening in the front for the door. They're now up to $50. They used to be $30-some. And then at the bottom, you do want to leave that half brick space for air to get in, or even you might have to make a larger space so you can get your shovel in, and then something you could block the air. You'd have to rig something up so you could block the air up and down. The air would come in the bottom, your door would be on top. Firespeaking.com has relatively affordable glass doors, small glass doors for this type of stove or for batch box rockets. I mean, $300 or $400 or whatever, starting at $280, or that's expensive for a door, but Other places, starts $500-600 for a door. So firespeaking.com is good. And let's talk about we talked about the mortar for if you're going to put a slab of, whatever you're going to put up top. You can put iron, granite, soapstone for your fire brick. Whenever possible, you want to use your refractory mortar. It goes on you dunk your fire brick in water, get it soaking wet. Your refractory mortar goes on extremely thin, and your joints are very, very small for fire brick and refractory mortar. You don't have to use refractory mortar. The old tradition is 3 parts sand to 1 part fire clay, but you might as well use refractory mortar because a bag of fire clay now is like $40. So it used to be, 20 years ago it was $8, but now everybody wants a fire clay sink and all this bullshit in their McMansions. You might as well use refractory mortar. It's not going to be that much difference in cost, but you could use 3 parts sand to 1 part fire clay. I would add a half part lime and half part type S, a little bit of cement. Or a full part lime, but everything turns white, so it can screw up the look of what you're doing. It's hard to clean up. Or 3 parts sand, 1 part clay to a half part type S. Just kind of holds everything together. I know cement isn't refractory, but that little amount of cement with the 3 parts sand to 1 part clay, I don't think it's not, if it breaks down a tiny little bit, like big deal. It helps hold everything together as you build the stove. If you just use 3 parts sand to 1 part clay, everything just slides around so much. It's hard to build the stove unless you're only doing 1 row a day. So, use the refractory mortar if you can just put it on super thin, but thick enough where, you have to have a good joint so your gases and smoke and carbon monoxide doesn't come out. Okay, you saw the way I did the chimney. It drops all the way to the bottom with that 6-inch opening. I call it the Centurion's helmet or whatever. A little bit more than 6 inches can drop all the way to the bottom. There are different options. You could put it up. You could make the Centurion opening on the one side and still put it on 4 little tiny thin bricks, put it up a half inch so the flames can slide in from all different directions. I mean, I don't think it would make much difference. If you're going to use a wider firebox than a 2-brick firebox, I would insulate along the sides of that back soup, the square in the back that holds the chimney. I would insulate along the sides to keep that like a superheated zone to burn up smoke. Now, you would preferably you would have a liner in your if you're building this in your existing fireplace, you would have a liner, a 6-inch liner. The corrugated flex liners work just fine. They're the cheapest, but even that, everything's ridiculous nowadays. I don't. Would that be $1,000 to get 20 feet of liner? Maybe. I don't know. It's ridiculous anymore. An option is, you could. It depends. If you stuck your head in your chimney and you look straight up, if you could see daylight. Some chimneys go this way and that way, and if you can just look up and see daylight, that makes it easy, because you could. Starting from the bottom, you could have stovepipe going all the way to each piece of stovepipe is even like, I don't know how much, is like $15 or $20 for a 2-foot section of stovepipe. You could go up 8 feet with stovepipe, and that would go all the way to the bottom of this stove with your Centurion helmet opening, and then after your first 8 feet or 10 feet of stovepipe, you could use. I can't tell you what to do, of course, in this sort of video. What I would do is then I would do this galvanized steel dryer vent, the final 10 or 15 feet up, because it's not going to be that super hot up there, and I think this would hold up just fine it wouldn't hold up forever, but I think the first 8 to 10 feet of the run is going to be super hot. Then I think this sort of pipe, which is at every Home Depot and Lowe's, would hold up. It is steel. Again, burn off the galvanization and not downwind. The zinc coating is highly toxic until it's burned off. So if you could see daylight from sticking your head up, you need to remove your damper and all that in the chimney. Some people have they have the damper squeezes into a small space. So your only option to go through that small damper squeeze, once you remove the damper in an open fireplace, is a flex liner that can be, kind of smushed down. But some people have smushed this type of pipe, or have smushed stovepipe down to get through that opening too. Other people have removed the metal damper and smashed through a few bricks to make a better opening. It's all, obviously I can't give every little permutation on what you should do, but you could even start from the bottom and start inserting pipe up the chimney until you have somebody up at the top to secure it with a cap and a way so the rain doesn't get in, etc. So I guess that's probably too many details. Everybody's situation is different, so this could go on for hours and hours. I do, again, I think the first 8 feet of run, you read regular stovepipe, you get super hot. After that, whatever. It's still going to be, it's still going to be 400 degrees, but it's not going to be 1,000 degrees. And any sort of, aluminum can't take it, but any sort of steel, there shouldn't be any problem. Also, and guys, that wall, your flames here lap up over the back. I think it would be a really nice look with a glass door. The flames would they would go through that little tiny slit, but most of the flames would lap up over the back like a reverse waterfall. It's a cool look if you look at how I showed this thing burning in the beginning. That wall would need to be bricks that you reach in by hand to remove them, because twice a year or so you got to get back to your pipe with a shovel and make sure you can clean it out, or get a shop vac back there, whatever it may be. If you put a clean out door on the side in the back, you could do it, but you got to stuff the heck out of it with mineral wool or ceramic insulation. There's just too many gases flying around too aggressively. A door by itself is going to leak gases. It's going to be dangerous. But if you stuff it with mineral wool or ceramic insulation, you probably could get away with putting a little clean out door in the back. If you build a super long stove and you can't get your hand back there, or can't get your shovel all the way back there, this, with a low enough firebox ceiling, this stove, as it got longer, it needs to be a little bit lower. But this thing could be 40 inches long. You could put big long pieces of wood in here. If the firebox ceiling was low enough, a thing could stick out 3 feet from the fireplace. It would still work. I believe, as intended. All right, guys, thanks for being here. I'll look to your comments.